So imagine walking down the road and falling flat on the ground, wobbling in a pool of blood from bruises you sustain. Well, that's the fate of epileptic patients, many of them at least. Doctors say the disease is not being given the needed attention, although it is endemic in many parts of Ghana. Well, today is World Brain Day. We know that the focus is on epilepsy. Here's a documentary that Seth Kwame Boateng put together, titled I Shake, I Fall, I Die. I'll come back and introduce my guest in the studio.
Epilepsy, a common but complicated neurological condition, and it makes its victims fall and wobble as if they are under a demonic attack.
So when it comes, most of the time she always fall from the bed. Anytime she's coming, she always clap her hands and make noise.
The unfortunate ones fall and end up in fire and come up with a lifetime deformity or even death. It is said that when life throws eggs at you, make omelette. But what do you do when life gives you epilepsy, the chronic non-communicable disorder of the brain, which can affect people of all ages? It is either referred to as epilepsy, seizures, or fit. Scores of people are daily falling victims to this disease through all forms of accidents. And Fatima Takarimu, a 32-year-old mother of two, can relate as her auntie Emilia Auni confirms.
She climbed a tree, fell down, broke the legs. They sent her to the hospital. Old man went and brought her home. So they used these local treatments for the leg. She became okay. And it was after some time that we realized that she was behaving abnormally. We didn't understand it. We had to send her to the hospital.
And this abnormal behavior after Fatima fell has changed her life forever. She suddenly began to suffer violent seizures which would drag her into an embarrassing convulsion.
Me myself like this, when the sickness come, I don't know. When I just get up and they are telling me, say that, oh, first you are doing this, you are doing this. But me myself, I don't know. When the sickness come like this or the sickness want to disturb me, you will see that I'm feeling headache. But
feeling headache?
Yes. But when I start taking in the medicine, and for now there, it's better. Thanks be to God.
When it is coming, do you notice it is coming?
No.
All you realize is that you are down?
Yes.
Tell me how that has affected your life, especially growing up. Your mother tells me you wanted to become a teacher.
Yes, and I want to come to the teacher. Next time like this, when I'm there, since rest, I already said that if I can go back to my school because of the English.
You want to go back to school?
Yes, because of my English.
But you can still go to school?
No. If I get it, I'll go back.
So what is stopping you from going back to school?
Because of that sickness.
Do you get scared that it might come anytime?
Yes, but for now, dear, it's better.
This has made Fatima a very shy person, making it difficult for her to mingle with people. Epilepsy is neither curable nor contagious, but genetically, it can be passed on.
Okay, so this is just parts of a longer documentary put together by Seth Kwame Boateng. Really, really emotional piece. I shake, I fall, I die. You can log on to YouTube and then you can see the full version of this piece. But let's get into the studio now and speak to the president of the Epilepsy Society of Ghana, Dr. Sami Ohene. Good morning to you, Doc.
Good morning.
Is it the fault of somebody, that they give birth and their children have epilepsy, for instance?
Certainly it's nobody's fault. There are various reasons why you may come up with epilepsy. A small proportion, and I must say that it's only a small proportion, is genetically determined, is inherited. But many people in this part of the world get epilepsy as a result of some damage to the brain right from when they are young, from infections, falls, and other forms of injury to the brain, leaving a scar. And that scar becomes a focus for electrical discharges, abnormal electrical discharges, which is how epilepsy arises.
Is this scar visible?
Usually no, but sometimes there are, when you do scans, some specialized scans may in a few cases show a focus. Then also, of course, there are people who get seizures because they have other tumor or something. That's not technically epilepsy, but you can get seizures as a result of that. Yes.
Okay.
So it's possible, but most of the time you may not see anything. We can tell you have epilepsy from the manifestation of the problem.
Okay. So, you know, when you say falls, it's bringing home something. Because when you have a child, the child would usually fall, especially when they're very young.
Well, not usually, we hope.
I mean, fall from the bed, fall, fall from the couch.
Oh, sorry, all right,
You know, the kind of thing, they step on the little
luckily
table
the
and then
skull, yes, luckily the skull is very strong, and children are also particularly resilient. So many people fall, but nothing really happens.
Okay.
Sometimes it's even the consequence of a fall that you didn't even think about. It's not necessarily because it was a serious or severe injury, but of course the chances are higher with severe injuries. But many people may have had some infection, cerebral malaria, maybe later on because of the damage or meningitis. After you have treated, it may leave something there.
Okay.
Yes.
In relation to the fall, I was just going to say that, you know how when it's your first child, any fall you take to the hospital, and sometimes the nurses or the doctors will simply just laugh at you.
Well, yes.
You know, when you tell them the level.
Yes.
And how we may take some of these things for granted, and then sometime in the future it may affect the child.
Yes.
But you're saying that.
Well,
that
yes.
the
brain is very resilient, and it's got a lot of padding around it and fluid, you know, so it's amazing, a lot of people who get blows to their head but who never. But in general, we should be careful about, you know, injuries.
So
the motorbikes, for example, that people have been riding about, that's a fairly dangerous contraption when you do it without a helmet. Because if you fall and you have a head injury, you increase the chances of getting diseases like epilepsy later on.
Okay. So this disease, like Seth said in that piece, no cure for it?
Well, that is not entirely true now.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, even for those ones for which we cannot find an obvious cause, as in a tumor, a growth, because if you have a growth in the head, a tumor, it can lead to seizures. And if we remove that, you could be free totally of the attacks. But even for those who don't have one, there is now surgery available in certain parts of the world, specialized centers. Neurosurgeons can actually cure you completely. It depends on the type of seizure you have and where the problem is. There is a part of the brain where there is an abnormality that can be seen on scans. And for those types, in specialized centers, they can actually remove that, and you'll be totally free. But for majority of people, we can control it.
Okay.
Even though we may not be able to, for now, we don't have a center like that in Ghana.
Yeah.
But most people with epilepsy can be controlled. I mean, they can do everything that they want to do.
So how do you control it? I mean, do you take drugs or?
Yes.
Because usually most people would say that they don't know when they're having the seizures.
Yes, because they don't come to the hospital, they've not been diagnosed, or because they are expecting cure, even when they've been offered treatment, they do not take it the way they should. What we do is that we offer you some type of medication. There are different types of epilepsy, And what we give you is dependent on the type of epilepsy. Take the one that the documentary portrays, which is the commonest one we all know about, the falling one. Now, there are a few very common and fairly cheap medications which people can take. And I dare say more than half of the people in Ghana who have this form of illness could be treated at perhaps less than 30 cedis a year. That's how simple it is. There's a drug, for example. It's old though, but it's still very effective. It's called phenobarbital. And it's a very, very cheap drug. For many people, taken once a day will be enough to control the seizures. The thing is that you need to take it every day, even though you may not have the attacks every day.
Okay.
That's where the problem is. Many people take it, and whilst they are taking it, they don't have seizures. And they assume, or they want to believe, that that's the end of it. But it's an episodic thing, as you know. It's not every day that most people have it. Yes, and you need to be on the medication. It could be for life, but the truth is that there are people who can stop it. We can stop some people and they are free. Normally, we aim at 2 years of a seizure-free period, 2 years when you don't have any attacks. And after that, when we want to stop it also, we do it gradually. For some people, that's it. They never have it again. So the story is not as bad as it seems. The problem is that many people do not believe in our environment that this is a problem you take to the hospital. I've seen some horrendous cases.
I was just going to say that why do people end up in religious facilities? A lot of people will take you to the prayer camp, some will take you to the herbalists, you know, and sometimes people lock their children or their relatives up at home. They don't want to...
Precisely because of our beliefs and because of the stigma that is associated with it. Many people in this environment believe that, as the documentary was suggesting, possession by demons. And there is absolutely no evidence that this is a demonic thing. We know that it's a condition that arises from the brain. We can show it, we can prove it. There is, apart from scans, there is something called an EEG, where we put some electrodes on your head and see your electrical activity, brain electrical activity. And in many cases, you can show where the abnormality is. Now, people believe that it is demonic, so they don't come to the hospital. To be fair, it's difficult to blame them because you go to where you think you can get help. If you believe that your problem is spiritual, then of course you go to the priest or some other place. It is that false belief which has been the problem, and which is why a lot of people go without treatment. We estimate that more than 90% of people who require treatment for epilepsy in Ghana don't get it.
Not because there are not enough doctors to treat it.
In fact, it's not just because of the doctors. It's true that there are not many specialists, but epilepsy is common enough that any doctor should be able to treat it. In fact, that's part of what the Ghana Epilepsy Association is doing. And right now, we in fact have a demonstration project in 6 districts in Ghana where we are training or retraining nurses, medical assistants to be able to treat epilepsy. Most people can treat epilepsy who have been taught.
How long does it take, I mean, to go through the treatment? Maybe that's also deter people.
Well, we've said that it's potentially lifelong, but it may be as short as 3 years. You see, when you have established epilepsy, in other words, when you have recurrent seizures, you must have at least 2 for us to say that you are have epilepsy. And then some of them may have been away for, you know, we don't see them for 10 years, 5 years before they turn up. And then when we start treating you, we aim at trying to abolish the seizures. Now, sometimes you may be taking the medication may be working, but you miss 1 or 2 days, and then you may have an attack. It's like treating hypertension. How long do we treat hypertension? How long do we treat diabetes? So you continue the treatment until the seizures stop completely. Then we will go on. When we find that for about 2 years you've not had a seizure, we will then gradually tail down the medication.
Okay.
And then if nothing happens, we declare you free. You can drive. In many countries, if you've not had an attack for a year, you can drive.
Okay. This situation of some persons not going to the hospital, is it peculiar to only Ghana? Because,
it's common in, should I say, underdeveloped countries.
Okay.
Yes. I think it's a function of, I dare say, ignorance. People do not know what this is caused by.
Yeah.
And therefore, they go to where they think they can have help, which is a spiritualist.
Let me ask you some questions that I've heard people ask when they find themselves in certain situations. You are a pro to this. If I want to get married to somebody who has epilepsy, can I do it?
Why not? Many people are married who have epilepsy. Epilepsy, Julius Caesar, right? Julius Caesar had epilepsy.
Okay.
He had epilepsy. If you read Julius Caesar, Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, reference is made to it. There are many great and famous people who have suffered from epilepsy. I know that in this country, it's one of the conditions that people go and sniff around about when they are doing the family whatever. But it is not a direct inheritance thing. There is no evidence that if you have epilepsy, your child will have epilepsy.
Okay.
It's just that a small proportion of people who have epilepsy have genes that predispose them to it. Even then, it doesn't mean that they will get it. And it's nothing like, it's not even like sickle cell, where if you have the SS gene, one of your children will have at least one S. No.
Yeah.
But it's just that it does, like a few things, run in families more than others. It's like asking tall people, does height run in families? Perhaps it does. Are you going to go and find out whether your potential husband or wife have tall people and therefore we want short people? You know, it's not as, yes.
But you understand that a lot of people are discriminated, you know, some persons, when they realize they will not marry you anymore, employ you in the workplace.
The employment bit I can understand, but it depends on the job the person is supposed to do. I mean, there are many people who don't have epilepsy, but who are born lazy or who don't function very well. And there are people with epilepsy who can do great and brilliant things. The fact that you may have a seizure, even if you have an attack once in 2 or 3 months, which lasts for less than 3 minutes, you know, doesn't mean...
But within that kind of, when it happens, you could do terrible things to yourself. Somebody put the hand in hot water, or, you know, in a stew that was cooking. You may never know what you're capable of doing when it happens.
Agreed. But that's because those people are not on treatment. Once you're on treatment, it's very unlikely that you will have a fit like that. And secondly, many people get what we call an aura. It's true that they say they do not know when it happens, but they know, very many of them know when it is about to happen.
Okay.
The aura may take any form. It may be a feeling of unreality. It may be something coming up your abdomen. Some people will see visualize of the scene. Some people actually even hear music or something. Or you get, you get a feeling.
So how long between that kind of feeling and when it really happens?
It varies. Technically, by then the thing has started. But at that time, you are still conscious.
Are you aware of yourself? Can you do anything?
Yes.
Okay.
There are many people who will tell you that once they realize it's about to come, they go and sit down quietly or stay in a safe place. It is true that it's not everybody who has a long interval between the aura and the actual seizure. But even before then, there may be signs. Some people become a little withdrawn. So if you are in touch with yourself and your illness, you probably will be able to help yourself. A lot also depends on the people around. If we all did not stigmatize them so much, if we're all not so afraid that it was infectious, then if it happens in the studio, instead of everybody running away, they'll make sure that you don't injure yourself. They'll remove harmful objects around. Because the fit itself usually doesn't take more than a minute at the most.
Okay, but what's that immediate thing that you could do to help someone? Do you hold them still? Or?
The immediate thing is to ensure that if there's a sharp object or something potentially harmful, a stone or something, you remove it.
Okay.
Otherwise, just leave them. Make sure they are lying flat and leave them.
Really?
Yes.
Couldn't they die through the seizure?
Well, the seizure happens frequently. It will last for about a minute. You can hold your breath for a minute and nothing will happen to you. Now, you see, the problem is that the interventions that people make potentially are more harmful. You should never try to put anything into their mouths, for example.
Okay.
There's the popular belief that you put a spoon or something.
Yeah,
no,
I've heard that.
no. What you end up doing is to break their teeth. You see, the way the seizure happens, as soon as it happens, and before you realize it, the person may have clasped their jaws. That is the time, if they are going to bite their tongue, that is when they bite their tongue. And it stays that way for maybe like 20, 30 seconds before the jerking starts. And then during that time, there is nothing you can do because the thing is in spasm. And when you try to force it open, you cause more harm. Now, after it's over and the muscles loosen up, there is no danger of biting their teeth anymore.
Okay.
All that may happen is they might swallow something that is in their mouth. So when the stiffness has stopped and they are more relaxed, then you turn them on their side, you jerk their head upwards, and that stage, when you don't have to force it, you open their mouth, and if there is something in, for example, if the person was eating before it happened, and they may have food in their mouth, then you gently just scoop it out. All you're trying to do is to prevent them from swallowing something. But the danger of their tongue blocking, all those things, is not real. Just turn over their side and make sure they are breathing.
Okay.
That's all. And leave them until they recover. Some may sleep for a few minutes, some a little longer. There is also the fact that for some of them, after the attack, for a few minutes, they are disoriented and they may walk about unsteadily, not knowing where they are. That is when you need to hold them and make sure that they don't come to any harm. Because they may wander into the street or some dangerous place, because at that time they are semi-conscious. Yes. But otherwise, just make sure the environment is safe during the attack and leave them.
So what does this say about a person? Does it mean that they're not on drugs, they're not visiting the hospital?
Well, many of them are not on treatment. That's why it's happening. Two, you may be on treatment, but you may not have. You see, sometimes it takes a bit of time for us to determine the dose of medication that you need.
Because you said there are types of epilepsy.
Yes. And then when you give it, maybe you need 60 milligrams a day of phenobarbital to control this person. The next person may need 90 milligrams. We start from the smallest dose. And maybe the frequency may reduce, but not fully gone yet. So if you come back after 3 weeks and tell me that I used to have it 3 times a week, but since I started this medication, in the last 3 weeks, it has come only twice. But you take the medication every day, then I know that, well, the medication is working because the frequency has reduced from 9 on the average in 3 weeks to only 2. But it's not gone. My aim is to stop it. So 60 milligrams, I may say, okay, now take 90 milligrams. Come back in another 3 weeks. Pronto, I don't have any more seizures. Then I know that perhaps 90 milligrams is what you need. There are a few other precautions that people should take. You should not go without sleep continuously. Sleep deprivation is one of the things that may lead to a seizure, even though you are on medication. And extreme fatigue, extreme physical activity, so that you are totally worn out, that can. For some people, a high temperature. So if you develop malaria, you should quickly treat it, especially for the children. And then, you know, you are under control. Yes.
Do you announce to, for instance, if you get a new job or even at your old place, do you tell the people you're working with, for instance, that you have epilepsy?
That's one of the reasons why we should all try to avoid the stigmatization of these people. If we have the right attitude to it, in many places, people wear bracelets with "I have epilepsy," so that if you are found on the street, you know, having collapsed, people won't run away from you, but they know that this is what the problem is. Or if you're unconscious, you fell down and hit your head, they'll take you to the hospital. But there still is a lot of stigma. Many people will not employ you because they think there's, you know, it's infectious. If it's infectious, of course, people will run away from you. And that is where the problem is. If employers would understand, everybody will recognize that there are people with epilepsy, but who can function normally so long as they're under treatment, then it wouldn't be an issue. I mean, HIV, do you disclose if you are HIV positive? A few years ago, nobody would dare. But now there are many people who are HIV positive who are working and doing everything, and if you have diabetes, do you disclose that you have diabetes? It's difficult because of stigmatization, yes. Certainly for some jobs, it's not advisable. If you're going to be working in a furnace or in a swimming pool, for example, or at heights, perhaps it's not the best idea.
Okay. So as we celebrate, I mean, it's World Brain Day, and I sensed a bit of excitement when you know, it happened that the campaign is on epilepsy. I sensed a bit of excitement in the email that I received from your end. So what is that one thing that you want people to remember today?
That epilepsy is treatable. So they should go to hospital. If we are able to identify the people who have epilepsy, let us send them to the hospital. Going to the church is not going to help. There is no demon inside the people, and it is not infectious. If we all get this message that it is treatable and it is not infectious, then we will bring them to the hospital. And with good advice, the right medication, if they take it properly, more than 70–80% of the people who currently have seizures will be able to lead a very normal life. It is treatable and it is not infectious.
All right,
and we should not stigmatize people who have epilepsy.
All right. And I tell you what, this conversation will be on YouTube later on today. I think we should all keep watching it, keep reminding ourselves, and keep sending the message on. I'm grateful for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. My guest, President of the Epilepsy Society of Ghana, Dr. Sami Ohene, and it's World Brain Day today. The focus is on epilepsy, hence our conversation. But let's not end it here. Let's keep talking about it. It's your birthday today, Esinam Donko, and it's from Abu, but of course from all of us. We wish you a happy, happy birthday. Esinam Amayo Donko. Enjoy your birthday today. We still got AM Talk and Showbiz coming up here on our show, so please do stay.